guide your journey into Cabernet Sauvignon magnificence. Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick and Pay, and welcome to the latest star in the galaxy that is David Higgs. This is Zioux, and just looking at it, you can see it is as cool as anything he's done. Although, as he'll be the first to tell you, it's not purely David, it's his team, Gary, Kiriakou, his partner, and very importantly, Gary's wife, Irene, who is the mastermind behind the look and feel of everything that the Marble Group puts together. And this is a really, really different space. There's the kind of upmarket, elegant cool of Marble. There's the slightly gritty but loads of fun Italian that is Saint. And then there's this place that's, well, it's just a little surreal, isn't it? As you can see from the art above me. The food here has got a bit of a Peruvian hint. If, like me, you grew up watching Paddington Bear, you would have thought Peruvian food extended to marmalade sandwiches. But it's ceviche that headlines the Peruvian offering around the world. There's plenty of it on a menu that's mostly small plates. There are some bigger ones, and it's a place that invites you to overorder, stuff yourself, and go home very full, but very happy indeed. But for a wine show, it's the wine that we really focus on, and it is a major area of focus for Zioux. Under Group Sommelier, Vickers, and under Steph Cartwright, who's looking after the wine here at Zioux, they've put together a wine list that's got some really cool stuff on it. As I have a flick through, importantly, some really nice wine by the glass as you moving through your different small plates, lots of different glasses to play off, everything from a glass of Cristalum Chardonnay, should you like it. You can go international with a selection of champagne, some 2013 Paul Roger, if you so wish, and right the way through to the top end, head off to Gevrey Chambertin, if you would like, and a bottle of Burgundy at, well, I'll let you find out the price when you get here. It's a lovely space. It is our host for this week's episode of the show, where we also head down to Cape Town to the Camps Bay Retreat and find out about Vondeling and an interesting way to make wine with a sparkle. But first of all, it's to that other restaurant, the headline act in David Higgs's group. It's Marble, and the chance to catch up with Stuart Botha from Tokara and the brand new vintages from the Stellenbosch estate. Now, for a tasting at Tokara, first prize would be to tend the estate itself with its sprawling views, its wonderful art collection, and its rather nice wine. But the next best alternative, if you're up in Johannesburg, is at Marble. And so I find myself with not just a couple of bottles of Tokara, but also Stuart Botha, the winemaker. Welcome, great to see you.
Great, thanks Dan, lovely to be here.
With a couple of new releases, which begs the question for me, how nerve-wracking this is for you, because you've done so much in a relatively short career. You've won all manner of awards. You've got a great reputation for some great wine at Tokara. But this is the first time some elite members of the media and me will be trying this wine. How nervous do you get around this?
There are a few nerves, I must say, but I mean, of course, we've very closely looked at these wines, and we wouldn't put them into bottle if we weren't completely satisfied with them. So the nerves are there, but more about the sort of public speaking component, I suppose, than the wines. The wines speak for themselves quite happily. So I'm actually quite confident that this launch will go very well, and I'm looking forward to seeing the reaction from the guests today.
It's quite a journey from the moment these grapes first find their way into your cellar to now in a bottle for the world to taste.
Yeah.
What's it like following that journey as the proud parent of this wine?
It's a joy, really. I mean, obviously, getting to see the entire process from beginning to end and sort of guide that process is really what gives the thrill to my profession and to my job. So it's a real joy to make these wines. I'm blessed with incredible fruit and a wonderful winery and team. And the Ferreira family, the owners of Tokara, have backed us incredibly well throughout the years, over the 20 odd years that we've been established, and we're really starting to see that putting through into some exceptional wine. So it's a real joy to be part of this.
Now, it is an extraordinary team. The Ferreira mentioned is G&T Ferreira, the owner of the estate, and every single morning G&T and his butler Carl have a glass of every single Tokara wine just to make sure it's on track. And it should be, because your track record is extraordinary. In fact, last year, I think every third email I got was Tokara's just won another award. You're the Bulgarian Red Wine of the Year, or you've just triumphed at the Mexican Sauvignon Blanc Championships. It was a fantastic year for you, which is great. But does it raise the expectations both that you have of yourself and that the market has of Tokara's wine?
I think it just aids to keep the message current and to show the world that we really are, putting our best foot forward in everything we do. There is an expectation there, but it's easily met because, like I said, we've got really, really fantastic fruit, and the journey of making this wine is quite exceptional, and the winery itself is beautiful, and the challenge is there, but it's not too much. Really, it is quite easy to produce these wines of this caliber ongoing, especially with the track record and the history that we have, and the knowledge that we've developed and gleaned off our sites and our terroirs over the year. It's put it this way, it's probably easier than you might imagine.
You have that wonderful habit of all of South Africa, most of South Africa's winemakers, of playing down the extraordinary job that you do. The job that has brought these bottles to us at Marble today, and I'm really excited. Let's have a look at the first of them. This is Sauvignon Blanc. This is Elgin. This is a wine I've had before a number of times in previous iterations. Pour some for me and tell me a little bit about the newest release.
All right, so this is our 2021 vintage. Let's do it in that glass. Following on the back of the 2020, which, as you rightly said, did exceptionally well. It won the trophy for the best wine on show at the Concours Mondial du Sauvignon, out-competing 1,200 international competitors from across the world. So really...
Let's just remind people of that. You're blowing New Zealand, which now that they can't play rugby or cricket anymore, has Sauvignon Blanc as their pièce de résistance, plus Sauvignon Blanc from the rest of the world. You blew them out the water. This was the best of them all.
Well, you don't know if we blew them out of the water, but I mean, we might have pipped them just at the post. But of course, we're very, very chuffed with that achievement. It does say something for the site. It does say something for the wine that was the 2020 vintage. And the 2021, obviously following hot on the heels, hopefully it will glean as much success as that. Let's try it.
Right. So interestingly, and I'll put this down on record, we are filming this in mid-January. You're probably watching this in early February. Mid-January, so we are about 12 days after Dimmersdal released their first 2022 Sauvignon Blancs, I think. So why Elgin, why this site, and what makes it quite as good as the world clearly feels it is?
Well, this Elgin property was specifically sought out for the production of Sauvignon Blanc. It's the majority of planting there. We went through quite an arduous process to actually select the site, looking at altitude, soil type, mean temperatures during the ripening period in terms of looking for cool climate. And those combinations came together in this site. It was not established as a vineyard at the time that we purchased it and established it with Sauvignon Blanc fruit and a little bit of Chardonnay, which goes into our MCC. But it's proven to be a site that is incredibly, incredibly well suited to the production of Sauvignon Blanc, especially aromatic Sauvignon Blanc in this cool climate vein that we're seeing in this wine. Look, obviously when you take the plunge and you work in a vineyard, there is some risk involved, but we've seen many, many rewards from this vineyard throughout the seasons. And it just seems to be going from strength to strength. So we're incredibly happy with the site.
The smile on face says exactly that, and not just your face, because this is turning into a rather nice breakfast. That blast of freshness, that blast of fruit. It's a Sauvignon Blanc that you've, I suppose, created as both your signature and the Tokara signature in this. But when you drink this and you close your eyes, what are you seeing? What are you getting?
Well, firstly, initially, I'm getting immense green, fresh characteristic. It's very typical of a slightly cooler vintage in 2021. Remember, Elgin is a site that ripens quite late in terms of the greater harvest season. So we picked this as a Sauvignon Blanc mid-March, whereas the Stellenbosch Sauvignon Blancs would be coming in early February. Just to give you an idea of how much later it is, that means that the grapes have a massively extended hang time. It gives them time to develop wonderful fruit characteristics and aromatics in the grapes, all under the auspices of a very cool environment. And what that brings you is incredible intensity in terms of aromatics, incredible intensity in terms of flavor profile. So I'm getting sort of initially quite a bit of Granny Smith apple coming through on the nose, a little bit of lime characteristic, lime juice characteristic. There's a signature hint of blackcurrant leaf, which I always find on our Elgin Sauvignon Blanc.
I remember you saying that to me before, and when you said that, I thought this is just another pompous, arrogant winemaker making stuff up.
Yeah.
And you try and go, annoyingly, he's actually right.
Yeah, but it really has become a signature. And then there's a wonderful salinity to the wine, which is testament to both the topography, the soil type in their region, which is sort of decomposed Table Mountain sandstone, and the proximity to the ocean. So we've got altitude right next to a cool ocean, sort of 5.5 kilometers away from the cool ocean. And those prevailing southeaster winds that are blowing over that ocean for thousands of kilometers, then pulling into the vineyards, bringing wonderful cooling into those canopies for us during the ripening season, gives you this very, very unique characteristic and aromatic.
2021 following in the footsteps of 2020. All right, there is your Sauvignon Blanc. And you don't need me to say well done, because I think you know you've done rather well. Let's try our other wine. Now this is a wine I always look at with a slight degree of sadness, because I know that the moment it comes into my cellar, somehow my wife is going to find it and drink it while I'm away. Because she won't drink white wine, she's a peasant, but she absolutely loves bigger reds. And this is one of her favourites. And this is one of the very first wines that I actually drank from Tokara years ago. So I've got many fond memories of it, as I'm sure you do.
Fantastic, yeah. So this is our reserve collection Cabernet Sauvignon. It comes from the property in Stellenbosch. So we started in Elgin, now we're in Stellenbosch. Situated up against the Simonsberg Mountain, and that terroir is really just so perfectly matched for the production of Cabernet Sauvignon, and specifically Cabernet Sauvignon. Testament in this wine, you can see from the vibrancy and the color immediately that it's going to be a good drink. This is the 2019 vintage. It's our first showing to the public, so you're the first person to drink it, so congratulations. And yeah, the match, again, we really strive to produce terroir-driven wines, wines that are quite expressive of the site. And I think from a winemaker's perspective, when you find a variety on a position in a vineyard that almost makes itself, you know you've got a match made in heaven. And this Cabernet Sauvignon, not to take away from it, but it's really quite easy to make this caliber of wine from this site, because the marriage is just so perfect between the variety and the topography there at Tokara. So really, really lovely, dense aromatics coming through, dense sort of perfume, a bit of spice, lovely toastiness from the barrels. I focus on more the blue fruit spectrum when I'm doing the barrel selection for this wine. It is a barrel selection of our best sites on the property. And that being said, it's made in fairly small quantities. We produce about 15,000 bottles of it each year. So there is some out there, but not a whole whack, if you know what I'm saying.
Just go back a moment there. If you're watching this, G&T Ferreira, this is very easy to make. He said the same thing about Sauvignon Blanc. You're paying him too much. He's doing no work at all. But what work he is doing is producing some glorious wine. 2015, incredible vintage. 2017 is starting to, in many ways, almost surpass it when it comes to Stellenbosch Reds and Cab in particular. 2019 already, there have been murmurings and mutterings that this could be another rather special year. At first glance, at first taste, it seems like that could well be the case.
Well, cheers to that. Yeah, look, I mean, the wines they're just gone 12 months in bottle. So they're still youthful, certainly. They have remarkable aging potential. And of course, you will be rewarded for aging these wines. They're made in the style that deserves aging. But that being said, quite accessible at the moment. So drinking, like you say, quite nicely.
Indeed, there's a wonderful softness and smoothness for something that is barely 2 years old. Very quickly, these are some of the highlights. A couple of other new releases you have coming out.
Yeah, so aside from these two, we've got our new vintage of Director's Reserve White, as well as the Director's Reserve Red. So that's the 2018 White, the 2019 Director's Reserve Red. We also have our 2018 Reserve Syrah, which is made in minuscule quantities, but something definitely worthwhile seeking out. And then our MCC. And then something else exciting, our XO Brandy. So the second batch of our XO Brandy, we're just about to release that into the market. It won a Platter 5 Stars. It's won a gold medal recently at one of the brandy tasting. I can't remember the exact name at the moment. But it is shooting the lights out, and something I put a lot of work into and something I paid a lot of attention to, and I'm really, really excited to actually see that hit the market. It's a beautiful, beautiful product and something to behold.
Prepare your very finest bottle of Coca-Cola in anticipation. I'm going to be trying some of that a little later, as well as the new releases, plus the new bubbles, which Carl, the dastardly CEO, made me open with a sabre in front of 600 people the last time I was down at Tokara. It's a lovely wine, as is the collection. Drink it, try it, but also if you get a chance, it's just a beautiful place. Drop in at Tokara, tell them I sent you, taste some wine, you won't be disappointed. Cheers. Hi, I'm Dan Nicol from Dan Really Likes Wine, and a very happy Dan because I found this on the shelves of Pick n Pay. Now, last year we celebrated 50 years of Cup Classique in South Africa. That's champagne-style wine. We can't call it champagne because it's not made in the Champagne region of France, so we call it Cup Classique. We do so very proudly because it just keeps getting better and better and better. And this is one of the reasons why. This Lulude estate is one of several we've now got in South Africa who don't make anything other than bubbles. They focus on getting this style of wine absolutely right, and gee do they. I spent some time with the team, with the winemaker just before Christmas, getting an insight into the care and devotion they put into every single bottle. It's a great looking bottle, but what's inside is even better, and it's part of an extraordinary array of bubbles you'll find at your Pick n Pay store. So go and explore in 2022, but particularly in February 2022, the month of love. Get behind Valentine's Day with some bubbles. Bubbles just screams out true love and Valentine celebration, and I think you'll find a wonderful, wonderful range across the board. You'll also find loads of chocolates and some great flowers, and I say that very deliberately because round about Valentine's Day, look out for something special when it comes to buying flowers and bubbles together and making sure that it's an absolutely love-filled February. So Lulude, their Cup Classique, one of many to try out. Celebrate South African bubbles. Have a wonderful February and happy Valentine's Day. So thanks Stuart and Carl and the team at Tokara. Those reds in particular looking really, really exciting. So too does this wine list. I'm just browsing through it a bit more, and it's typical Vickers. He's had a lot of fun coming up with everything from some Semillon blend out of Gabriel's Kloof, some really nice Viognier, a fair bit of vintage champagne. There's a 2006 Le Salon, if you're really feeling like splurging, and also some terrific food. I ate it yesterday. They've got a lovely new fresh crab dish on the menu. Oxtail fete cook, that's David Higgs having a little bit of fun, and a buttermilk chicken. Think KFC that went to private school. And that's what you have got. Before we head down to the Camps Bay retreat, you want to enter this competition. Throughout the month of February, your chance to win yourself a case of the 5-star Platter Hourglass Chardonnay, as well as a stay for 2 people for the weekend at Bartinney in the Bunhook Valley. It's a beautiful spot. You'll have to get there yourself, but once you do, you've got a weekend of luxury to look forward to in a beautiful part of the wine world. Simply go onto Facebook, go onto Twitter, go onto Instagram. Tell us why you would like to win this particular prize. Make sure you tag Dan Really Likes Wine and you tag Bartinney, and the first live show of March will let you know who's won. Right now, let's head down to Cape Town, head down to Camps Bay and find out how Vondeling are going old school with their bubbles. Hello, welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick n Pay, and welcome to someone you might find familiar if you follow the Instagram account of Joanne Strauss, who tends to put 30 to 40 pictures up a day of the Camps Bay retreat. I think she got married here or engaged here or had a baby shower for one of her 11 children. Anyway, I've seen it on Instagram, but this is the first time I'm seeing it in person, and seeing it is enhanced by the fact that I've got some rather nice and some rather unique wine with me for the occasion, and that's been presented to me by the rather chiseled winemaker by my side. His name is Matthew Copeland. You'll remember him from a couple of episodes of Dan Really Likes Wine, in particular episodes celebrating wine made with environmental sustainability at hand. And it's great to see you in person.
And you. Cheers.
Cheers. We've got rather a special day here because not only are we in a beautiful location, we've got some terrific wine with a very particular story, and it focuses around something called Méthode Ancestrale. Now, initially, I thought Méthode Ancestrale was wine that was made by Ken Forrester, because he's fairly ancient, but there's a little more to it than that. Give us the Ancestral story. What exactly are we drinking?
Well, Ancestral, the name refers to exactly what it is. It's the original way of making bubbly, all right? And of course, originally it would have been made accidentally. So what happened is they would have put wine in a bottle which wasn't quite dry yet, and would have continued fermenting in the bottle, and that's where your fizz and your pressure would come from. Later, it was refined to a two-step ferment where they would ferment a base wine a second time, and they'd have a lot more control over it. And it then became cosmetically attractive, so there was no cloudiness. They could get exactly the right amount of bubbles every time, and so on. And that's pretty much the story of champagne. Story is that Mr. Dom Perignon rode a donkey from somewhere in the south of France, taking the secret of Méthode Ancestrale with him to Champagne, where it was then later refined. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But Méthode Ancestrale as an official term wasn't around until sort of somewhere in the 80s, when all these geographical terms became solid and Champagne became protected. And what was then called rural in Limoux needed an official title. And so the official name Méthode Ancestrale was born. And that's why it's still relatively unknown. And what it is it's a one-step ferment. So you pick your grapes, you crush it, you take the must, you ferment the must, and when you've got a precise amount of natural sugar left, you then bottle the wine, and that's what creates the fizz and the pressure within the bottle. So it's a single-step ferment, and it's natural grape sugar without further tampering. That's its simplest form.
So just broadly speaking, before we try this and as you open it up, for somebody who's never had Méthode Ancestrale, it all sounds a little strange and different and unknown. What, broadly speaking, is the difference when you're drinking the stuff between this and what we know as Cab Classique?
Well, what's quite nice is that the category has actually evolved since we first produced one, so that they now divide the Méthode Ancestrale into two categories, sparkling wine and pétillant. So pétillant meaning sparkling as well, but sort of lightly sparkling. So anything with an internal pressure of less than 2.5 bars is considered pétillant. Anything above that is Méthode Ancestrale sparkling. So now at Vondeling we aspire to basically making the best champagne style that we can in our climate. So ours is cosmetically pure, meaning there's no haze in it. We've got full pressure. We're just getting more fullness, more richness.
So if I went and did a tour through Champagne, for example, would I find much of this particular style?
It would be quite geeky, I should think. Yeah, it would be very limited volumes, and by and large, now just remember this is 8 years old. So
this was the
you
very
can see
first
there's a bit
one.
of colour on you.
This was South Africa's
South
maiden.
Africa's first one, and I must be honest, I haven't opened a bottle in quite some time. So cheers.
Cheers. This is seriously cool. This is why I love doing this show. The first time this style ever been made in South Africa, and this is the man behind it. So if I don't like it, it's all your fault, then.
So definitely what I'm getting there is some crisp apple and a bit of nuttiness. There is a hint of age there, which is also shown through the colour. And Méthode Ancestrale generally is not something you keep terribly long. That said, traditionally it is made with a lower pressure, with residual sugar, and they do not riddle and degorge it to remove the sediment. So it's meant to be early drinking when it's still sort of fruity, vibrant, refreshing, and with a slightly lower alcohol. So that was also part of the nerve-wracking process of how well would it keep. And I think when we taste the 18 in the moment, you'll get a slightly different view of how the Méthode Ancestrale has evolved within the Vondeling stable. Right, back to the cooler box. So the only difference you'll notice is that there is this sort of orangey blush to it. Mm-hmm. And of course the label, instead of being gold, has this copper tone to it. And in fact, this vintage was so inspirational to me that subsequent vintages, including the 2018, I've incorporated 20% pinotage. Just brings a little bit of texture, a little bit of spice, and just the barest hint of berries.
We know that there's not much you can't make bubbles out of if you really want to, but traditionally from a champagne style, it is Pinot Noir, it's Chardonnay, and it's Meunier, and that's what we look at. When it comes to Ancestral, are there particular grapes that were traditionally used, or is it a crack at anything?
Yeah, no, it's the grapes traditionally used are those sort of southern France grapes that are sometimes difficult to remember. The particular one, I'm actually not precisely sure which one would have been traditionally used, but so in Limoux they would just call it Blanquette de Limoux. No specific grape mention or anything like that. So you'll notice a bit more fizz, a bit younger, and you can hardly see the color.
I'll tell you what, you can't see from this particular angle, but just holding that up, I've got the Camps Bay beach and the water thereof just sitting behind. And if the wine is half as good as the view, it's going to be magnificent. And I suspect it'll be more than that. Cheers.
Cheers. So here there's a bit more excitement for me. The fizz is very intense. The structure is slight but invigorating, and you do get that berryness on the nose, and it's just super fresh.
I think this is drinking delightfully, but it's certainly not the only one we have to drink. What's next in our journey?
All right, second last, and you see now we started entering competitions and whatnot. So we've got the medals. And remember, we're competing now. At that stage, no category 4 method ancestral. You were allowed to compete against MCC. People that have been doing MCC for, at the very least, decades. So to come out as well as what we have, I think we've achieved the objective which we set ourselves, and that is to create the best possible bottle fermented sparkling wine we can. You see, again, more mousse with each passing vintage. That's not only because we're technically improving, it's just age. You lose a bit during age.
There's also both in bottle and in glass a real lemony colour to this.
More and more so as we get into the younger and younger vintages.
I think that translates into the nose as well. There's that little citrus burst as you... Oh, it's actually not dissimilar. Occasionally I forget just how cold the water is at Camps Bay, which sits a few hundred yards, and I bravely stride in David Hasselhoff like, and then sprint Usain Bolt like back out. And it does have that wonderful, refreshing, it just lifts you as you drink it.
I remember well being a student in Cape Town, and there'd be girls around, so you would not allow yourself to do the Usain Bolt part. You'd have to stay in the water and pretend you were enjoying it.
I had no such reserve, I'm afraid. All right, so something that, again, it's even younger, it's even fresher. Is this for you from a technical perspective? Do you drink this and think, yes, I can see the evolution, I can see that I'm heading in the right direction, I'm starting to get this more towards where I'd like it to be?
Yeah, absolutely. So with each passing vintage, it's become more and more crisp. But here you can really get that vibrant resonance that I was looking for. So you've gone from, they talk about daytime versus evening time champagne. And what we have been having mostly up until now is something a little bit more viscous, which is more suited to evening drinking. Whereas this sits nicely between evening and daytime because of that crispness. So that you drink something more crisp during the day normally.
At a very, very, very simplistic level, I think lemon twist for adults, that's just glorious. And that's kind of where you're heading on this. I can feel the winemaker glaring at me, but that is what I will go with because it is a delight. It's one short of our full house. There is the new one. We had it in hand at the very start. I reluctantly put it down. I'm going to reach back and get it now. This now reflects where you are, what you've got to, the best of what you've done so far?
Yeah, it brings it all together. So we've infused that Blanc de Noir, the Pinotage, and as you correctly said, you know, in Champagne you would traditionally have the Pinot Noir. Well, we've got Pinotage in South Africa, so that's our South African twist. So not that bubbly really breathes, but this is breathed somewhat. So let's give it a nose.
One of the conversations that we've had, particularly this year being 50 years into making Method Cap Classique,
Yep.
has been about broadening our horizons and our understanding of Cap Classique as both a food wine and as something to age and give a bit more time to. In terms of Ancestral, is it great for food, and is it something, I know you mentioned it doesn't last for too long, but can we give it a few years? And I would suggest from what we've drunk we can, but
Yep.
your expert opinion there.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the other concern that I had is age worthiness, and I think we've now proven with the fact that we do have a legacy of 8 years in bottle that it can age, most certainly. Certainly from a chemistry point of view, it's got the pH that will allow the wine to age. It's got the mousse, it's got the pressure that's going to allow it to age. There's absolutely no reason that I can think of or that I've seen in the last 8 years that means you can't age it.
As we drink it, and it is an utter delight to do so, throw forward as you see it, both for Vondeling and for South African wine, Method Ancestral. Does it stay this tiny little corner of wine geekdom, albeit one that's delicious and lovely to explore? Or do you genuinely feel it's got the potential to have a little bit more of an impact on our wine horizon?
I think it does. I think it should, and I think it will. There are a fantastic amount of young winemakers that want to break into not necessarily mainstream, but they want to get recognition. And it's very hard to compete against established wineries. So they need to embrace what is new and exciting, and then they make it mainstream. So there are quite a few young guys out there, most of them starting off with a more Pétillant. And I think that's because there are cash restrictions in their lives. A Pétillant you'll release within, say, a year of its production. So it's much better for cash flow than having a bottle lying around for 3 years before you release it. Because then, of course, you've got 3 years worth of production each year. You know, it gets more. So they're out with the old, in with the new each year. But I think in time they will gravitate towards this exact point where you are really pushing it as far as you can in terms of quality. So I think there'll be a big wave coming soon.
Of the many reasons when I speak to people around the world about just why South African wine is doing so well, yes, it's great value, yes, the quality is extraordinary, but I love the fact that so many of our winemakers, and Matthew's a terrific example, are vested of this sense of adventure and this desire to go out to break new ground, to do stuff that's cool, that's fun, that's different, and that gives people like you and me the chance to drink something extraordinary. Chances are you've never had Method Ancestral before, but don't let that be the case for much longer. Go out and find some. Maybe it's some Vondeling, maybe it's something else, but try the style, appreciate it, taste it in the context of what Matthew's told us about this really cool but old school take on the art of bubbles. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with plenty more still to come. Matthew Kirkland, thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
So there we go, Vondeling putting a fresh spin on a very established way of making bubbles in South Africa. That does it for this week. Our show coming to you from Zioux, David Higgs' newest restaurant, well worth checking out. Have a look at their cocktails as well. It's a seriously cool one that comes with a chameleon. Just one of many reasons to drop by and have a look around. I'll see you back again on the show next week. Don't forget to enter a wonderful competition from Bartinney. This has been Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick n Pay, coming to you from Zioux. See you next week. Goodbye.